All right, hi everyone. Welcome to General Papers Taster course. I'm that GP guy and I'll be your main tutor for today. Okay, so just a word of advice. Later on, there'll be a number of QR codes coming up. So it'll be good for you to prepare your phones first, okay, for convenience sake. Yeah, if not, then let's get started. Now, who am I? I'm that GP guy, as you guys know. I graduated from RI in 2020. My subject combination was PCME, so physics, chemistry, math, and econs. Yeah. And I have already been admitted into NTU NIE, which stands for National Institute of Education. So yeah, you guys can guess by now that I'm an aspiring teacher myself. In NTU NIE, I'll be studying hopefully secondary and JC English. Yeah. Okay, so on the right, you can see my Instagram page, that GP guy. Over there, it's basically where I post all the current affairs and content knowledge for you guys. I organize them in bite-sized information so that it's easy to remember and to refer to. And the range is really broad. I don't have any specific range. It can be literally anything that's going on in the world. Okay, and beyond just like content knowledge, I also put up like tips and um, uh, breakdowns of essay questions, especially nearing to the exam period, like for this year's A levels. So if you refer to my most recent few posts, there's a couple of posts on like tips on paper 2 and paper 1. Yeah, so those are pretty useful also. So if you haven't followed me yet, feel free to go and follow me on Instagram. Yeah. And oh yeah, and I also offer lessons for those who are interested to learn more. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the breakdown of today's content. Firstly, I'll start off with showing you guys what is basically GP, because I'm sure many of you have no idea what the transition from secondary to JC in terms of English is going to be like. So yeah, and secondly, I'm going to be going more in depth. What do I mean specifically when I mean the transition? What is the differences? What's the changes between O level and A level English? So I'll be touching on that more in detail in part 2. And part 3 is the taster course. I'll be focusing on the essays primarily because of the lack of time, and also because I feel like for essays there are more ways for me to introduce you guys to the vibrancy of GP in JC. Yeah, and at the end of it, we'll be having a short interactive session where I'll be answering your questions, and yeah, you can ask me literally about anything over the next few slides. If you have any questions about JC Life, GP, uni admissions, literally anything, just feel free to ask. Yeah. Okay, then let's get started. All right, introductions to general paper. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so GP, like what Nadia and Cheryl has been sharing yesterday, is basically a subject where you are supposed to learn about the world, understand the current affairs around you. Okay, so if you ask me, I would say that GP is essentially English in secondary school, but without the fiction. So like recently, I've looked up the O level essay questions. I noticed that some of them will like discuss a moment when you regretted your actions or something along the lines. Okay, but in JC and GP, we don't really have this kind of narrative fictional context. It's mostly argumentative. Okay, you're supposed to um, argue critically about a certain topic. Okay, it can be like environment, education, politics. Yeah, so it is basically a mixture of your general knowledge plus your linguistic skills. Okay, and specifically, I mean to express yourself coherently. So knowing about what's going on is not enough. You also need to be able to express yourself well, because a lot of times students, they have a lot of examples, they know a lot of things around the world, but they're not able to argue in the right way. Okay, they will trail off in the elaboration. They'll talk about something that's irrelevant, or they may not even be able to bring out the true essence of the example to its maximum potential. Yeah, so there's a lot of elements involved, and that's why it's not so easy to uh, clinch an A or a B in GP. Okay, so the last sentence, it says like of the first paragraph, it says that we're supposed to connect the individual events as a whole by connecting the dots. So yeah, over time in JC, you realize that a lot of times in lessons, your teachers will be doing mind maps or huge like diagrams and charts to try to link the ideas because they want to inspire you to be able to think broadly and see the similarities and differences across different issues. Okay, so maybe in secondary for essays, you might have like mentioned some of the world events. You might have dropped like, let's say, the Cambridge Analytica example. Okay, but your evaluation and explanation of the example may not be as in-depth as it should be. Yeah. Oh, also, if you have written like hypothetical examples in the past, like imagine if this happens, then this will happen. Okay, this kind of examples, right? We won't accept it anymore in JC because you need a concrete example, statistic, code, or a public figure's name. For example, you can't just uh, brush off with some shallow, um, superficial context. Yeah. Next slide. Okay, so the differences. Next slide, please. So for essays, I've broken it down into O level and A level. Okay, as you can see, the for the first part, I've tried to focus on the number of questions and the type of questions. So for A level is only argumentative. Okay, you only have argumentative questions, which means that you are supposed to give a stand. There is no balanced view. You don't just end off with um, a ratio of 1:1. Okay, there has to be a ratio of 1:3 leading to one side, or maybe like 2:3 or 2:4. Okay, but it can't be like 1:1. Yeah, and there are no discursive, no descriptive questions. It's only argumentative. Okay, for the number of words, obviously there'll be more. Okay, and the official rule is that students should write 500 to 800 words. Okay, but honestly, like what I said in the brackets, most students write more than 1,000 words. For myself, I write on average 1,002 for every essay. Uh, because honestly, if you don't write that much, it's very hard for you to bring out the evaluation and the analysis to the maximum. Yeah. Uh, and lastly, so like what I said earlier on, you can't just brush off with superficial observations. You need to provide an in-depth analysis of the topic required. Okay. And also the question type matters. Maybe in O level there weren't so many types of argumentative questions, but in JC there are many types of questions, and the format to answering each question is different. Okay, you need to be wary about the tone, the examples that you use, the way you argue and enunciate yourself. All of these things matter. Whereas for O level, it may not require so much. Like it's more straightforward. Yeah, and timing at the top I mentioned 1 hour and 30 minutes. Uh, so that's quite a drop, I would say. It's very tight in exam. You need to write really fast, and it can be quite stressful. So yeah, that's basically the overview of the big changes. Okay, then moving on to paper 2, comprehension. Comprehension, I focused on the format for A level. Okay, so A level, paper 2 comprehension, we have 3 segments: short structured questions, summary, and AQ. So for the first part, I think they're quite similar. Basically, you have a comprehension, a passage, then you answer them. Like, what does the author mean here? What is it referring to? Why is this letter in bold or whatever? So it's quite similar to O levels. Yeah. But for um, summary for O levels, you guys, the system is 1 point for 1 mark. Okay, that 8 marks in total. The marks is still the same for A levels, but the number of points required is much more. Okay, so 15 to 16 points equals to 8 marks. What do I mean? So there'll be a spectrum. Okay, so maybe 1 to 2 points is 1 mark, then 3 to 4 points is 2 marks. Okay, then subsequently you go up all the way. So you can see that you need more, the more points you have, the better. Okay, and in a compre, right, the teachers will definitely set such that there will be more points than what's needed. Okay, so that it's basically giving you more leeway so that you can find more points lah. Yeah. And lastly, AQ. AQ stands for application question. It is 10 marks. It is like a mini essay. You're required to draw out 2 or 3 arguments from the passage, basically what the author has mentioned, and then you're supposed to evaluate with reference to Singapore or with whatever country that you're from. Okay, so in my society, I agree with this observation, or I disagree. Okay, then why? Explain why. Because so and so, because of our local context, our cultural, our politics is different. We have unique customs, so and so. So this is where it gets challenging because you need to really demonstrate your strong awareness of Singapore in general. Yeah, and not just politics or healthcare or education. I mean everything about Singapore. Okay, you have to at least have a rough understanding of what is going on in Singapore and how the things work. Yeah, and in O levels, you guys don't have it. Yeah. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so without further ado, I'll jump straight into some of the essay types. Okay, the first type that I'll be tackling are key questions. Next slide. Assess the view that government regulation is the key to ensure that media is trustworthy. Okay, how about we just press all the points? Is it one or yeah, okay, it's just 1 point. So key, best, most effective, main, only, they are all the same. Okay, they can be rephrased, repackaged, but they're all the same type of questions. Basically, there's a statement here. The statement is that government regulation is the best to ensure that media is trustworthy. Then you're supposed to put up your stand. Do you agree or do you disagree? If you agree, then that's easy because you just need to provide reasons as to why you believe that, it's true. Yeah, I genuinely agree that government regulation is the best because of certain characteristics, certain trademarks, um, or certain qualities of the government, which makes them the best. Yeah. And if you disagree with this statement, then that's where it gets tricky because this means that you need to bring in other stakeholders. So for this question, for point 2, you can see that I mentioned that there are other stakeholders involved. Besides government here, the other 2 stakeholders that we can probably evaluate are corporations and individuals. Yeah, so there's no right and wrong. It's up to you. It depends on what you truly believe in. Okay. But what matters most is that whatever stand you choose, you need to provide a comparison of the ability. Okay, because if you say that the government is the best, is better than the other stakeholders, then you have to tell me why. You have to tell me using descriptive words like, oh, because they're the strongest, they are the most able to do this, to carry out this action. So like what I said in the point 3, you're supposed to consider the strengths and the weaknesses of every party before you choose a stand. And this is important because you need to make sure that in the planning stage, you don't just dive straight into the essay. You take some time, think through, make sure that you have all the points out before you move on, because you don't want to write halfway and then you realize that, oh shit, I'm stuck. I can't think of any more. Then that's too late already. Yeah. Let's see. So if you are going to write the disagree stand, basically you are disagreeing with this statement here. You are saying that no, I disagree. I feel that government regulation is not the key. Okay, then you're supposed to choose a separate stakeholder, like let's say individuals. Okay, I disagree. I believe that individuals are the key because of what blah 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 blah. So let me show you an example. If you disagree with this statement, why self-regulation might be key, is because self-censorship of netizens today, they are more immediate in directly curbing the proliferation or the spread or the circulation of malicious content. Okay, so the example here I have is the Pizzagate theory. Uh, yeah, the content is basically there. So basically, there's this guy who um fired shots at a pizza restaurant after he came across several articles online calling out the restaurant to be a human trafficking ring. Okay, and obviously this is fake news because um, there was during that time it was a 2016 presidential election period, so there were many of such fake articles that's being circulated online, trying to um, make the election process um, hard. Okay, and basically the fake news were put up by the far righters, and they were defaming Hillary Clinton and saying that she is involved in this human trafficking ring. Yeah, so this is an example to show how self-censorship of netizens today will be more immediate. So what do I mean is that imagine if you are one of the netizens who have contributed to this spread of fake news, right? What you could do is simply not circulate the information. Okay, self-censorship, simply by not pressing that button or not sharing, not forwarding that file, that folder, that picture, that video, you contribute a lot to curbing the spread of fake news. Okay, it is free, it is immediate. You don't need to wait for some regulation, some policy to come in place. It could take a few months before the legislation gets rolled out. Okay, whereas on your end, right now at your house, you can stop pressing that button and you can stop the whole spread of all this malicious content. So that's what I mean when I argue that self-censorship will be the key. It is better than government regulation because it is more immediate. Yeah. Okay, so however, if you choose to agree, then next slide. So if I agree that government regulation is the key, that's my overall stand, then I would um, rebut the previous argument. I would rebut the previous argument, and I would say that government regulation is fundamentally more effective and more consistent. Okay, so the rampant circulation suggests that the netizens, they are more prone to sensationalize information. So what do I mean is that I'm trying to look at this culture, this trend of fake news being circulated online. Okay, the very fact that we see so many fake news articles being circulated online, right? It shows that our netizens, they are not they are prone to this kind of over sensationalized information. Okay, they lack the ability to sift through the right and from the wrong. Yeah, so that's why we need the government to step in. We need the higher authority, okay, to step in and to intervene with stringent laws to make sure that we don't break the law. Um, the two examples, the first one, Truth Warriors. Truth Warriors, if you guys aren't aware, is just a couple of months back, I think in October. Basically, they are a group of individuals in Singapore who denounce the effectiveness of the vaccines. Okay, they're saying that it's useless, it's not good or whatever, and they say that we should count on ivermectin as an alternative because it is the cure, it is the remedy to COVID-19. And obviously, their claims were um, not backed up. Okay, and they ended up getting POFMA. So POFMA stands for the Protection from Online Falsehood Act. Yeah, it is a form of legislation from the government, and it shows how government regulation, their intervention through this kind of legislations, it helped to curb the spread of fake news. Yeah, and the same goes for the second one also, shutdown of the real Singapore. So okay, let me think. It's about a decade back. We had this social media um, platform, just like the Online Citizen or Mothership. Okay, this one is called the Real Singapore. The Real Singapore got shut down for fabricating articles. If I'm not wrong, I believe it was because they had put up a few articles alleging that there was a Filipino family um, complaining about the um, smell of the neighbors cooking, if I'm not wrong. But basically, this whole drama that they put up is false. Okay, it's fake news, and they ended up getting shut down by the government, and they also got charged also, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, these are so both examples. You can see that it is a prime example to show how the government has stepped in to make sure that fake news is not circulated as rampantly. Yeah. Okay, then next slide. So another argument that you come up with is that governments, they are also the gatekeepers, the protectors, the defenders, the guardians, okay, of a social, more stands for like customs, traditions, culture, okay, and the moral welfare in the society. So, their decisions in regulating the media, it reflects the mainstream social and moral norms. And compared to corporations and individuals, they are in the best position to determine what is acceptable. Okay, so what I mean by that is that this is slightly more challenging. Okay, so you need to take a step back and see the bigger picture. Okay, governments, um, you can also look up this theory. It's called the social contract theory. It is basically where the citizens, we entrust ourselves into the hands of the government. We trust the government to take care of us. Okay, and in exchange for our compliance, okay, the government will uphold security and make sure that our country is stable and runs smoothly. So that's the social contract theory in a nutshell. Okay, and in with reference to this theory, you can see that this argument is basically saying that the government, they are essentially um the protector, okay, of our what is deemed as acceptable in our society, the culture, the traditions, the policies and the values of Singapore. It is being upheld by our own government. Yeah, so what is acceptable will be dictated by them also, should be dictated by them, and what's not should also be controlled by them also. So like, for example, maybe in America where they practice free speech, you can put up YouTube videos saying, holding some kind of a debate, a discourse about controversial topics like race and religion. Okay, that may be acceptable in America, but not in Singapore. Okay, if you put up any videos on YouTube saying that, oh, Singapore, Chinese, Malay, Indian, whatever, uh then you list down the pros and cons or whatever, you will be shut down within a day. That's for sure. Okay, we have zero tolerance on any kind of initiatives that are aimed to lead to greater social certification. Yeah, and the same goes for other topics beyond race and religion, like let's say vaccines. Okay, now in the COVID pandemic, okay, it is very important that the government protects us by making sure that the security is upholded lah. Okay, so when we have groups like earlier on I mentioned the truth warriors, when these groups come out, okay, and they make big claims about how the government is useless, we should count on ivermectin, we should not use the vaccines are not effective. These kind of statements can be very dangerous, okay, because in the minds of the elderlies or the naive youths, okay, they may um think that this is true and it could lead to like adverse impacts. Okay, so there will be like a chain effect. So that's why um it is important that the government steps in to make sure that this kind of the information or the content that is being put up online is not it is in line with the values and the traditions that is upheld is upholded in the country. Yeah. Okay, then is that all for the next slide? Oh, okay, then yeah. Moving on. For the next type of questions, we have like divide and unite. So divide and unite, what do I mean? You'll be able to see the analysis of this kind of question subsequently. So the example here is food drives people apart rather than bring them together. Okay, so for this kind of questions, you need to weigh both sides of the issue for every body paragraph. Okay, like every single paragraph, you must do the comparison. And this is sometimes in essays you don't see like the summarized version. Sometimes where the setters, right, they will set it such that it's confusing. In this case, it's still okay because they say like drive people apart. It means divide, and bring them together means unite. So that's still considered as straightforward. Certain schools like as far as I'm aware, Hwa Chong, they can be quite um tricky in their setting of the questions. Basically, the question is phrased very uniquely. Okay, there are metaphors within the question that needs to be unpacked. So these kind of questions are even harder to ace because if you misinterpret the question, you don't understand it, or you think it in one way but actually it's the other way, then basically you're screwed. Yeah, so that's also another point that you have to be careful of. So yeah, it's good to always paraphrase the question because sometimes when you see this question, right, it can be very long. Um, for me, I like to try to summarize the question to the most succinct way possible, so that it helps me when I reread the question in my head, because I don't want to think this entire question like such a long sentence. I want to summarize it. So to paraphrase this question, I simply shorten it to: Does food divide or unite society? Okay, and take note of the last point. Okay, the last point is very, very important. Divide and unite is different from cost and benefits. I know in secondary you guys do a lot of pros and cons. You would do analysis of the advantages, disadvantages, what's good, what's bad. Okay, but in JC, that's very rare because we are moving away from this kind of straightforward observations. Okay, divide and unite has a much more stringent criteria. Okay, which you'll be seeing in depth later on. Next slide. Okay, divide and unite. So what is divide and unite? Something unites society when it allows for greater connection, okay, or fusion of people who share the same interests, values, or beliefs. It allows for greater understanding of each other's culture and ethnicity, and it also reinforces a sense of shared identity or interest. Okay, so you can see that all these points that I mentioned, it shows that there's a unity coming along. Whereas for the divide, it can lead to like greater um, inequality or unequal accessibility. Okay, or it could spark like differences in the opinions and school of thoughts. Yeah, basically you think of this matter in one way, and I think of it as the other way, and then we quarrel over it. Yeah, so that's what it means to divide. So, moving on, food. Why does food unite society? One possible argument is simply because food acts as a universal symbol of solidarity. Okay, and it transcends all cultural, political boundaries and connects individuals worldwide. So if you take a look at the examples, the Michelin stars rating is a common interest amongst the gourmets. Okay, and they draw food lovers to restaurants. So um yeah, this is an example of um the common thing between all of us. And then other stuff like food shows, they also is also the same as Michelin stars rating. Um, and the last point, political conferences, the Trump Team Summit, okay, is an example of how food can act as a symbol of solidarity which transcends political boundary. So the food was seen as an emerging diplomatic tool for intercultural dialogue between North Korea and America back during this summit. Yeah. Okay, divide. So one example, one argument that I can think of is that the issue of unequal access to food. Okay, so I'm sure you all know that there are certain places in the world, certain countries, certain states which are deprived of food. Okay, that's why we have famine, we have um droughts going on. Okay, and uh the this basically happens where developed nations, they can relish in feast while developing nations will suffer from poverty and famine. Okay, so this is particularly applicable to like the Middle Eastern countries or countries in Africa. Um, Sudan, Congo, they are often plagued with like ineffectual governance because of the governments which are useless. Okay, they are corrupted. They squander away national resources. That's why the people have to suffer. Yeah, then in affluent nations, some of them, they also have they treat food as a form of art. Okay, they are portrayed in like paintings or sketches in museums, and you will never see this in countries like Sudan or Congo because if there's food, I mean, it's probably gonna get eaten up. It's not gonna get put up on a portrait or an art piece or yeah. So this is how it gets divided. Okay, if I'm not wrong, this is the last slide, right? Yeah, okay. So for this divide and unite type of question, right? If you guys are interested to learn more about the other um arguments that I have, there's two more. You can refer to the link in my bio. A few months back, I did a webinar called Essay Writing Techniques by that GP guy. Basically, I shared about how to write essays, as well as how to tackle some of the more challenging essay questions. Yeah, so you'll be able to find the other two arguments for divide and unite over there, as well as other types of questions like double-barrel questions, and let me see what else. Overrated questions. Yeah, and I also managed to come up with acronyms and structures for you guys to learn how to write introductions and conclusions more effectively. Yeah, okay, so that's just for your reference. How is the workload for GCME? I don't take GCME, I take PCME. PCME means physics, chemistry, math, and econs. Okay. And how is the workload? I would say it is still okay. PCME is definitely not one of the heaviest combi. We have other heavier combis like the BCME, okay, biology. It is very, very content heavy. I have friends from BCME and I always see them carrying around stacks and stacks of bio notes, like very, very thick. Okay, one of their bio topical notes can be equivalent to like 4 or 5 notes of our physics topics. Yeah. Okay, and there are also harder ones whereby like hybrid combis. Okay, basically it's a mixture of science and humans. So biology, chemistry, history, and maybe geography or literature. Yeah, so these are like the killer ones because it is very, very content heavy. You need to study for both the humanities side as well as the science stuff, and like it's two huge mountains lah basically. Yeah. Uh But I would say that doesn't mean that the workload for PCME is not as heavy, means it's going to be easier because I think it's still up to the individual. A lot of times it depends on how receptive you are to the subjects, okay, and practice. Okay, practice makes perfect. You can't get by without practice. It's very hard for you to ace exams when you don't practice because um you will lose the drill. Okay, you need to keep up the momentum. So yeah, I would say that in JC generally doesn't matter what subject combination you choose because it's still a lot about the self-taking self-initiative. Okay, you gotta be disciplined and study on your own. Make sure that you're doing the right things to make sure that you are not like wasting your time in JC. Okay, if you have any doubts or any queries, quickly clarify them with your teachers, your friends. Make sure that they are clarified before the exams. Don't wait till the last minute. Yeah. Um, is it true that markers prefer non Singapore or okay? Is it true that markers prefer global examples in the paper one essay section? Is it true that wait, let me see. No. Okay, to be more precise, uh in essays, right, the examples, the only requirement is variety. Okay, I don't care what example you give me, you gotta be um having a diverse selection of examples. What do I mean by that? It can be local, global, okay, statistics, quotes, um, events, initiatives, names of public figures. Okay, these are all instances whereby we can throw in some examples. So don't give me a full essay of um, local examples, okay, or like global examples only, or like all statistics, all numbers, or all codes, okay. Obviously, that will mean that you have a very narrow selection of examples, which can also reflect that you don't know much. That's why you're only using this kind of very specific examples. And basically, if you ask me, right, I would say that it isn't wrong also if you choose to write only local or only global examples. It's not wrong. Okay, the thing is that for essays, right, it is a chance for you to flex. Okay, students use essays to flex. So uh obviously you want to put in more variety of examples and uh um initiatives to show that you know a lot of things. The more the better. Okay, so you don't want to just stick to one type of example. Yeah. Uh do you have any free notes or resources to give? Yes, I do. You can refer to the link in my bio. I have the last link should be free topical notes. Okay, but beyond that, my entire Instagram page is basically free notes. So you can just give me a follow and you have access to a lifetime of free notes. Yes. Okay. How do you prepare for the examples for GP? Prepare the examples for GP. Similar to what um the uh, Nadia and Cheryl have been sharing yesterday for GP. I read. Okay, I refer to a variety of news medium on like social media. So I got follow like the Online Citizen, Today Online, The Guardian, okay, the Economist. These are all very um useful news platform where you can obtain like bite-sized information of literally anything in the world. Yeah, and especially for the professional journalists like The Guardian, right? Every article that they post is already written to the best. Okay, so the language, okay, the vocab, the way they structure their thoughts and everything is already put in the best format already. So what that means is that by reading this kind of articles, right, written by professional journalists, you can learn not only about the news but also um gain like new vocab words. Yeah, and of course it'll be good to have a vocab bank near you. So basically, whenever you come across a chim word, then you just drop it in. Then over time you would make a huge long list of um uh vocab bank which you can refer to for not only essays but also like paper two also. Yeah, and paper two, right, there will be a lot of questions where the short structure questions they ask you to phrase your answers in your own words. So you need to paraphrase and argue in your own words. You can't use the words in the passage. So that's why vocabulary matters. Okay, you need to be able to control and have a strong command of the language lah, basically. Uh let me see. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I think that's it for now. If you guys have any other questions, you can feel free to share. If not, I'll just keep on sharing from my own personal experience. So um for JC, right, if you ask me as a senior, as a student, as a teacher, I would strongly advise you guys to use your time valuably, um because in 2 years is honestly not very long, but it's not very short either. Okay. um I would say that it's very important to constantly reflect on your learning. Why is it that this time around, maybe for the first class test, you didn't do very well? Is it because you weren't paying attention in class, or you weren't, um, you didn't clarify your doubts? Okay, or maybe you just didn't prepare for it at all. Why then move on? Okay, what's the next step? And keep improvising and adapting accordingly, and make sure that um, you're always on the ball. Okay, you know what to do to make sure that you're not going to fail. You don't want to wait until the last minute, okay, near like months or weeks before the A levels, and then you panic and say like, oh no, what should I do? So this sounds easier than said, okay, but honestly, you may never know. You could end up as one of those students who just get stuck in a vicious cycle of S and U. You constantly fail, and you basically just get all depressed, and you just give up on the subject. So this is not like um this is not being dramatic or whatever, okay, because I'm speaking from personal experience, not me, but recently, for 2021, my last student that I received was um uh uh let me see, is it, yeah, it was a student from Nanyang JC, I think. She came in with like S and U grades, okay, and S and E grades, okay, and it was 3 weeks before A levels. Okay, not really 3 weeks, but like let's say two weeks plus, around there. She came to me. She approached me on Discord after watching my essay writing webinar, and she basically came to me for help lah. Okay, and I could tell from her tone that she was pretty much done with life. She was very depressed, and she wasn't expecting much. So um yeah, subsequently I did take her in. I did help to try to pull up her grades, but it was one hell of a revision, because we had to um go through a cram course and like intense revision. So yeah, it's not good for both her and for me. So never leave things to the last minute. Okay, if you need help, reach out to somebody. It not be us. It could be your teachers, your friends, or maybe your parents. Get some kind of a support early. Don't wait until the last minute. Yeah. Okay. See. Oh, okay, that's a question. How does GP compare to KI in terms of the content? Oh, damn. Okay. Okay, firstly, I need to say that I don't take KI. So, but however, I have friends in KI, so I will just speak from what I remember from our interactions. Okay. KI, if you guys don't know, it's called Knowledge and Inquiry. It is a H2 subject. So you can either choose to take the subject combi like PCME plus GP. GP is H1 subject, or you can choose to take three core subjects like let's say PCM plus KI. KI will sub in as one of the core subjects plus GP. So that's the perk lah of not of taking up KI because you don't have to study GP. Okay, but is it worthwhile? Does it mean that it's easier? I wouldn't exactly say so lah because for KI, the prerequisite to take up KI even right is to have like really high grades for English. Okay, like a 4.0 GPA for English. You need to have a really strong control over this subject to be able to ace KI well. And the questions in KI are not similar to GP at all. It's completely different. I would say it's a lot about the philosophical debates. Okay, you need to have the interest in that field, and it's also pretty random. It's not really specific to a particular topic like politics or environment. This is not okay. It's mostly like a debate about um a very philosophical issue. Yeah, so that's the difference. Oh God. Can you help explain GP, ELLKI, and how they are supposed to be taken? Uh, Sorry, not sure what you mean by taken. Like, like you mean how to study well for the subject? Yes, correct. English language and linguistics is subject by itself is a H2 subject, and H1 subject is GP, and H2 is KI. Yes, correct. It's not exactly like fixed at H2. Okay, but for KI, I don't think there's a H1 KI. KI is definitely fixed at H2.
Well, you unmute yourself. I'll just answer that question. I had a classmate that he dropped KI. So since KI is sort of a H2 version of GP, there is no such thing as H1 KI. So what happens is when you drop KI, you drop the entire subject. So you typically the dropping window is after the JC1 result. So in JC1 you take KI, and then in JC2 you take GP and your one other subject. So remember what the GP guy said, that KI actually replaces your other H1 content subject. So in the sense that you are trading one KI for two H1 subjects. So because now you drop KI, you have to take GP and the other content subject. So that's how it works.
Yeah, thanks so much. Okay. Wasn't so familiar with KI myself. Uh, for the person who's still raising the hand, yeah, you can just speak up if you want to. But if not, yeah, like what George mentioned, you can kind of guess that it is very important for you to make decisions early in like throughout JC. Okay, like what I said, it is not too long, but also not very short. If you choose to make this kind of haphazard decisions at the end or near the end, okay, it's very bad. You basically have to restudy new subjects. It doesn't matter is it one or two, but as the fact that you have to study an entirely new subject on its own is already disastrous. Yeah, and plus you have to make sure that you can like adapt to it quickly and all. Uh, yeah. So um, especially in J2 because all the exams and the class tests and um prelims will be coming in and they'll be very packed. Okay, it is going to be very very stressful. So pace yourself and quickly make the adjustments that you need to make in J1. Yeah, because I would say that maybe J1 is like the honeymoon period or some sort for you to play around and get to know about JC life, the culture, what is there to experience, and yeah. Whereas for J2 is more of like the period where you settle down and get ready to like put in the effort to study already.